Traveling across campus, I really didn't notice anything different, or at least I didn't feel different. Um, I definitely felt more open, more vulnerable as I sat my purse in the front of the wheelchair, and usually I hold it close to my body. I also felt like when I was going across the streets, like people weren't looking for me. Kind of similar to when I'm with my partner's 3-year-old daughter, we have to remind her, we tell her people aren't looking for her when we go to cross the street. And so being much more attentive, I decided to travel at the same speed that I would walking, and I gauged it by using Andy and Hannah. And so I don't think I didn't feel any difference. I did have some interesting maneuvering tactics that I had to employ when I was trying to get on and off an elevator. Speed definitely became an issue, the speed in which I traveled. I also couldn't reach the buttons on the elevator. In terms of going to the Christian graduate student meeting, the tables were set into a long rectangle, and I essentially didn't fit physically. I could barely reach the table. And there was a moment where my keys dropped, and the lady next to me was like, "I'll get them." And I was like, "No, it's okay. I'll get them." And so I leaned to get them, but by then she had already gotten them for me. And I remember kind of feeling like, I could have really gotten them, like I told you. But whatever. But I think I felt like moving around, sitting in the chair, or portraying immobility was not my problem, but rather everyone else's. I didn't really worry about what other people thought of me or anything like that. Just more so of navigating safety and being able to reach things physically.
As I sat in the chair, I immediately felt a sense of power. Perhaps it was the electrical speed of the chair transforming my bipedal capabilities into a motorized vehicle. I felt as if I was in a vessel, one that would allow for capacities my body would alone struggle with. It was amazing how shrinking from 6 feet tall to 4 feet 7 inches completely changed the way I saw the world. The concept "the view looks different from down here" comes to mind. Not only did my standards of tall and short change, everybody was now looking down at me, and I was looking up to them. I quickly began to feel that original surge of power slowly dissolve. The sidewalks on campus were awfully uneven, creating a bumpy and Frogger-like experience when navigating my chair. I was paying a lot of attention to others around me, more so than I normally would. I was examining their position on the sidewalks, if they noticed me or stared at me as I drove by them, and if they would make eye contact with me. Across the board, I noticed that nobody really paid much attention to me. At first, it was refreshing. I assumed that my chair didn't change the way people saw me. Later, my classmates informed me that there were a few people who stared pretty hard at me after I passed them. People didn't ignore me for the same reasons that I normally ignore those walking past me. They didn't ignore me because they have more important things to do and I am just the normal college campus passerby. They ignored me because they didn't want to make me feel uncomfortable, while they stared me down as I passed them by. One person was standing in the middle of the sidewalk texting, completely blocking my path, and had no idea I was trying to pass by. I had to say, "Excuse me," 3 times until she finally turned around, looked down at me, and said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." What struck me most was not that she was oblivious of me, but that if I was not in a chair, I could have just easily walked around her. This struck me that the space I usually occupy as a large male is radically different from a chair user. As a chair user, I was more dependent on others considering my mobility in order for me to navigate through campus. As I entered Lagomar Hall, I was very overwhelmed with the difficulty of getting through the doors and how small the hallways were. I continuously felt as if I was in the way. It was amazing, however, that people interacted with me much differently inside the building than they did outside of the building. People opened doors for me, they smiled at me, they were very conscious of leaving enough room for me to pass by. It was a completely different experience. I felt as if being a man in a chair made people want to accommodate me more. I feel that normally I carry myself as a kind and approachable person, but many times others have told me that my size and color make me come off as intimidating. I couldn't help but think how being in a chair altered that experience. Did people feel sorry for me because I was a man of color and a chair user, a sort of double negative, or did being a man override these sentiments and my presence simply commanded respect and assistance? Either way, the intersections of race, space, gender, and ability played vital roles in my reality and how others responded to me.
Last Wednesday, I was shorter. I sat lower to the ground. Instead of walking across campus, I found myself scooting electronically, like I was in a ride in an amusement park. It felt so false, and yet real in the sense that nobody around me knew that I could get up out of the electric scooter if I wanted to.
Take a picture. So that piece of paper flew out of the what's that thing called? The chair.
Basket.
The basket. And she, huh?
That would have been history.
Oh yeah.
There's no way. How could I have gotten that?
Inside the state gym, I veered to the elevator and rode at a half light down to the ladies' restroom. Why not test this state-of-the-art facility? Did they uphold the ADA standards that I had been trained to use as an architect? Does the handicap stall really have a 5-foot diameter turning space? Unfamiliar with my machine, I collided too quickly into things. A wall, a stall, another wall, a toilet. It was very difficult to turn the cart in such a small space. I did not have the arm strength to balance myself as I donned the toilet seat. I was a cheat. Maneuvering by arm muscle alone is an admirable feat. The locker room on the entry level was more spacious. I banged into fewer walls. But the doors were just as awkward to open. I decided that I would never again complain about designing a facility to ADA standards. I decided that every aspiring architect should don a wheelchair for an hour. That was really hard. I will never complain again about designing a bathroom to ADA standards. I noticed that some lockers throughout the gym bore an image of a stick person in a wheelchair. How did that blue square come to be the symbol for a breed? How would someone with walking legs feel if a stick figure marked every space that was designed for them to use? How would I feel? The most challenging part of my experience was attempting to breach the weightlifting area. I felt like I was crossing into an invisible bubble. Even with my legs, I had never used the weight machines on the first floor of State Gym. There were far too many men lifting intimidating piles of metal for me to feel comfortable. My mouth said that I wasn't afraid to navigate this space in my chair, but I gave up quickly because I knew my scooter would not fit through the machines. Besides, the men were looking at me. I did not belong there. In fact, I didn't belong in a gym at all. What do mobility impaired students do for exercise? I'm sure using a manual wheelchair gives their arms an incredible workout every day, but a gym, a fitness center, is a building where the able-bodied can get fit. I did not fit there. My inactive legs disqualified me from everything except the pool. It had a special chair that could lower me into the water. This encouraged me, but the rest of the building was made for the majority. I was unfit.